Thank you. The Honourable Taylor Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Assistant President. The bill that's before us today aims to address a flaw in the current laws of the state of New South Wales. At the moment, when an unborn child is tragically killed by a person causing grievous bodily harm to a pregnant woman, there is no justice for the family or the child whose life is lost. The unborn child is simply written off as an injury suffered by the mother. A discussion of this bill cannot occur without acknowledging the circumstances that have led to its creation and the reasons why the push for changes to fix the blind spot in our current law will continue until it's addressed, and I hope today is that day. On Christmas morning in 2009, Brodie Donegan, who was 32 weeks pregnant, decided to go for a short walk from her home at Ourimbah on the Central Coast along a road that I used to drive along every day, Mr. Assistant President, and I remember the widespread loss, firstly, and the injustice, secondly, felt across our Central Coast community at the loss of one of our smallest ones. In anticipation ahead of a drive later that day to Newcastle that Brodie and her partner Nick and her daughter Ashley would be taking that afternoon on Christmas Day. At 10:30 a.m, Brodie was struck by a driver, and the unborn baby, who Brodie and Nick had named Zoe, tragically died. Brodie herself suffered significant injuries, including a shattered pelvis, thigh, lower spine and foot. The driver who struck them both should not have been on the road that day. The driver had ingested the day beforehand a cocktail of methadone and 5 other prescription drugs. She was found guilty of dangerous driving, causing grievous bodily harm and driving under the influence of prescribed drugs. In the sentencing of the driver, the judge was explicit in highlighting this blind spot in New South Wales law, and I quote, "The court acknowledges that from a purely legal point of view there was no loss of life, but there was a loss of an unborn child," end quote, Mr. Assistant President. Brodie, Nick and Ashley lived in the entrance electorate on the Central Coast, and their former local member, Chris Spence, met with the family, which then commenced, as we all know, a lengthy process to update the law to reflect what I believe is a near universal view in our community, that there should have been justice for Zoe and the Donegans. I want to acknowledge and thank Chris Spence for all the work that he has done for more than a decade now in trying to ensure that unborn children like Zoe, whose lives are brought to an end before they even begin, will receive justice. Chris was successful in having an earlier version of this bill, Zoe's Law, passed by the other place. Unfortunately, the same outcome didn't eventuate in this place, and I'm sure that that will be different here tonight, Mr. Assistant President. I also want to take the opportunity here and now to acknowledge Brodie and Nick Donegan, who are here tonight, as well as Jacqueline Sparks, who tragically lost her daughter Mia 7 years ago in similar circumstances. When another version of Zoe's Law was debated in the last Parliament, I repeated Brodie's version of the day that she lost Zoe, and I won't read it out here again tonight. It is incredibly moving, and I invite all new members who were not here for that debate, and anybody who is viewing online, to go back in Hansard and read my contribution during that debate. It's a very, very moving story, and as we all know, Brodie and her family have done so much since that tragic day to get to here where we are tonight. A similar tragedy occurred in October 2018 when Catherine Huang was killed in a car crash in Orchard Hill near Bankstown, along with a young relative. Catherine, however, was heavily pregnant with twins that night. The driver was convicted last year of 2 counts of manslaughter and 1 count of aggravated dangerous driving, causing grievous bodily harm. At the time, the driver was driving up to 112 kilometres an hour in a 60 kilometre an hour zone with a blood alcohol level of 0.204 and cannabis in his blood when he lost control of his vehicle, crossed a median strip, veered onto the wrong side of the road. Now, I ask you to put yourselves in the shoes of Catherine's husband, Bronco, who had his whole life ahead of him, along with Catherine, the twins, and their wider family. Now, he was newly married and expecting twins, but due to one person's erratic, aggressive, and grossly negligent act, destroyed all of that for Bronco and his family. Instead of the life that they had planned, Bronco woke up in hospital a week later and was told the most distressing news imaginable, that his wife and their 2 unborn children were dead. And that driver was sentenced last year to 15 years in jail. 4 people lost their lives that day, but he was only convicted for 2 lives lost because of the blind spot in our laws that we will fix here tonight. The bill before us creates 2 new offences in the Crimes Act. Firstly, a new Section 54A offence of causing the loss of a fetus, and this will apply to a wide range of criminal acts such as dangerous driving or grievous bodily harm with intent to the pregnant woman. Combined with existing maximum sentences, the new maximum will be 3 years higher than currently available for this conduct under existing law. Secondly, a new Section 54B offence of causing loss of a fetus, death of a pregnant woman. This will apply in existing homicide offences such as murder, manslaughter, dangerous driving, occasioning death of both the pregnant mother and their baby. Again, this offence will carry a maximum penalty of 3 years imprisonment and apply in addition to the maximum penalty for the homicide offence, therefore increasing the maximum jail term by 3 years. Other important changes in the bill include an amendment to the Criminal Procedure Act, allowing the name of an unborn child to be included within the particulars of a criminal charge if appropriate, an amendment to the Crimes Sentencing Procedure Act to allow a family member of the deceased unborn child to give a victim impact statement, and an amendment to the Motor Accident Injuries Act, enabling family members to claim funeral costs for the loss of an unborn child caused by a car accident. Mr. Assistant President, this is well and truly long overdue. I'm very pleased to be here on the night and be a part of the process as we finally close this loophole and I commend the bill to the House.
Ms Abigail Boyd.
Thank you, Mr. Assistant President.